John Uhas, I get to see you. You're muted though.
Yeah, but John's got a nice background picture.
Yes, and it's a lot nicer than mine.
Yeah, it's nicer than mine too.
First time out, I got stuck. That's my wife to the rescue.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And what, is it raining or is that the sunshine out there?
I was never going to bring it in the rain. I wasn't going to bring it on the highway, and both happened first time out. One wrong turn did it.
Why not? Yep, that looks like that's not MG red. That's it's not the 71993 color. That's it's autumn red, more like autumn red, isn't it?
Right. Oh, it's supposed to be. I don't know if it's closer.
It's, you know, all those old paint codes, the ones that my late wife Caroline worked on so hard to get a whole list of with the Ditzler numbers and all that kind of stuff. It's all, I mean, it's just there for information because no one can build paints out of all those old codes. We used to call to the Ditzler library and we'd say, we're looking for, you know, make up a Chelsea gray. And the guy'd say, well, just a minute here, I'll give you an eye match. I suppose that was EYE. And they give you some color from a Chevrolet truck, you know, that was still in production or still easily mixed or something. And it'd be, you know, it'd just be spot on, but all that stuff's gone now. That was a long time ago. So Paul Deershaw at Sports Car Craftsman has the panels that go behind the front wheel on an MGB, the front splash apron panels. They're, I don't know, this tall and the back side of which hardly ever get any damage to them. So he's got those hanging up all around out in his showroom. Oh my gosh. He has just a tremendous number of those available. So.
John, we've compared cars before. This, I think, was a GM paint. It's my neighbor's car. Mine's green like it's supposed to be. Oh, but just to let you see another, which
Yeah,
I think
that's about
close.
Looks real close to John Uhas's there. It does. Dean Wheeler, I see you on tonight. Barney, I see you on there.
Hi, John. How you doing today?
Hey, pretty good.
Ready for the holidays?
Hey, just got done with Thanksgiving. Had my daughter come up from Crystal Lake, Illinois, with her husband and 3 kids. We had a real good time. Real good time. So.
Sounds good. Good to see you.
Pleasure indeed. It's almost that time that we're going to have to start. Not that it's horrible that we have to, but just about that time that we're going to start. So I've got 61 people on right now. We've got a minute to go. Well, probably not even a minute, but so Bob Forsblom, I see you on tonight. Nice. So it turns out the lay gear bearing that I was looking for, you know, that pin that goes in the 1-2 sliding hub on the midget gearboxes to keep it from the inner hub from moving up and eating up the synchro ring when you're in first gear. I thought that was the same diameter as a TD lay gear needle bearing, but it's not. The lay gear needle bearing is like 0.154 and that pin that goes in that 1-2 sliding hub is like 0.183. So I got to come out. I've got one pin that's just infinitesimally too short. So anyway, it's 7 o'clock, so it's time for us to go. Time for us to be online. We've got 80 people on right now. So I'm going to go over what we do in case there's some new people on board here. This is our tech seminar for our MG Zoom tech seminar. Pretty soon I'm going to be referring to most everybody as engineers. We held that special out for people who had attended seminars in the past. A lot of you got certificates coming up to the shop, but we're going to repurpose that word and include most of the people here that come on the Zoom sessions. So anyway, we've got the Zoom session. It's going to last for a solid 2 hours. And then if there's still some stuff on chat, maybe it'll drift on. It certainly isn't going to go beyond 9:30. That'll be the max time. Doug Clark, who's off and on, is our official counter last week, 2 weeks ago. Doug counted, I think, 152 people on, and our two people from way out of the country. I do consider the United States and Canada as sort of the same big area. We had Rodolfo from Monterrey, Mexico, and we had Halliday from I think from Perth, Australia. So we'll see who we've got on tonight. Norm Ewing thought he might be able to get on from South Africa. We'll have to see if Norm weighs in. So anyway, the deal is that we're going to go through an introduction, a little bit of a talk in the beginning about gearboxes. I've got a PowerPoint presentation I practiced the other night, see if it's going to work, and then we'll open it up to chat. At any time that you have a question, all you have to do is unmute yourself and ask the question or weigh in with whatever comment you might have. Because of the background noise, because of pots and pans and ringing phones and barking dogs and grandchildren showing their grandpas how to work the internet, there's often some sort of background noise. And I've got a very powerful button here, a mute all button. And I do use it. It's not because I don't like you, it's just to get rid of all that background noise. Now to unmute yourself, to add a comment or ask a question, and I will call on you if you post something in the chat section. We get all the way through that last time. To unmute yourself, you can either go to the bottom of your screen and find the mute button and physically unmute yourself with your mouse or something, or you can simply press the spacebar key on your keyboard, and that will unmute you for as long as you have that depressed. That's pretty handy. So anyway, I want to start off tonight. For a long time this past summer, I was excited about coming up to 10 million views on YouTube. There's a new YouTube video out now. Actually, we made two. The one that's up right now is fixing sending units for MGB and midget gas tanks. How exciting is that? And we've got another one up about doing midget gearboxes, but we only got through the disassembly, and that's a solid 20-some minutes long. It goes pretty fast. We haven't edited that yet, but eventually we'll get that up. But I was looking for 10 million views. Got that, got beyond that. Tonight, when I looked an hour ago, I had 10,081,860 views. So thank you very kindly for watching those videos. And we've got 24,590 subscribers on YouTube, which I think means most everybody gets an email as soon as I put up a new video, which I'm hoping to put up some more new ones pretty soon. I sent out in the constant contact email that came to your email. That's why you're on, because you got the link. I sent out to 5,800 of those, and that's gone up a couple of hundred. Marty Bradley, my administrative assistant, has been working pretty hard with Facebook, trying to get people to put their names onto the website so that you do get the invitation. And we're also working on a new website, which will launch about the first of the year. So that'll be a tremendous improvement on what we've got going, and it will have a lot of technical information on it. So that's just news and notes. I want to thank everyone who makes contributions. This is so far, this runs by contributions. And I want to thank those of you who've gone to my website, universitymotorsltd.com, found the yellow PayPal button, pressed the PayPal button, and have made a contribution. As I say, each time we have the session, all the money that comes into that doesn't go to me. Some of it goes to Marty for her administrative assistance. Some of it goes to pay for Constant Contact or to Zoom to pay for my ability to do these meetings. And of course, some of it goes to the insurance man, because I have to have insurance, because my gosh, if somebody heard something on here, what's the newest one I just heard? Oh, Asperger's kids. If you've taken acetaminophen during your pregnancy, now, you can just dial an 800 number and maybe you can get some money back out. There's people out there suing for all kinds of stuff. Some of it's legitimate. I don't disagree with that, but oh my gosh. Anyway, I want to thank those of you who have made a contribution. And let me read off some of those names right now. We started with John Uhas when I came on, and we'll start with John Uhas on the list of contributors. So thank you, John. Preston Morgan, Glenn Nikelski, Tom Snook, Barry Spear, Fred Horner, the SU man, Thomas Dunn, Kurt Johnston, James Simino, Greg West, Doug Clark, our counter, George Jardin, Alan Batchelder. Alan runs the magnet registry, Z-type magnets. David Fitch, Ralph Poupard. Don't know if he makes the mustard or not. David Bartley, Rudy Guerra, Scott Lynn, Larry Prang, Doug Miller. So those are all the new contributions I've had since my last seminar on the 14th of this month. So thank you very kindly, and I will attempt to remember to ask you again to make a contribution in about an hour, but sometimes it gets going pretty fast. I don't remember all of it. So I wanted to talk about gearboxes today, just a little bit. I've got a little PowerPoint presentation. It ought to be fun if I can make it work. So let's see. First of all, I got to go to share screen. Okay, and then I've got to find, there we go. And now we're going to go slideshow. I'm going to the slideshow, and of course I can't make it, can't get rid of that left hand deal, but let me just try a little bit more here. Slideshow, and from the beginning. There we go. There we go. All right. Okay. So these are MG Gearbox notes. This is a T-type transmission that we did when we're up on Fulton Street. We got a handy little device that threaded into the bottom of the gearbox, so you could hold it in the vise, so you didn't have to flip it around on the bench. Makes it a whole lot easier to put it together. So this is some of the parts from the inside of a T-type gearbox. The lay gear in the foreground is extremely worn. It's a little out of focus, so you can't tell what it is. All the threads inside here are metric, despite the fact that the wrenches that fit them are all BSF. Here's the lay gear with really, really bad teeth. Now the engagement part of the teeth is on the left-hand side here. And when you go to engage reverse or first, and the two gears crash into each other, hence crash first, the face of the tooth gets beat up. But it's this part of the tooth here that gets chewed up and makes such a racket when the car is in first gear. These are spur gears. They're very noisy anyway, just by their nature, which is why the rest of the gears are helical. But these are really worn. They make a lot of noise. Here's an interesting one on a T-type. You can see that the nose on the third motion shaft, or the main shaft, is supposed to come way out to here, Over on this one, I don't know, broke off. It broke off, go figure. You know, you can find all kinds of damage inside a gearbox. You probably won't find this inside your T-type gearbox. This is pretty unusual. Here's another shot of that. You can see that on this right-hand shaft here where it's been rubbing against something for a long, long time. Here's a synchro that is fallen out of the sliding hub. This type of sliding hub is common to the T-types and also the very earliest Spridget gearboxes, where the brass is part of the sliding hub. Later, they made balking rings with ears on them. I just took a gearbox apart. I just took a T-type gearbox apart when I was in Savannah, Georgia, 3 or 4 weeks ago, and the front bearing in the gearbox is here on the side, and you can see that the ball bearings are free floating. They're supposed to be caged like this, but the cage had all but disappeared, and was lying down inside the bottom of the gearbox and all chewed up and so forth. Here's a dimple on a T-type gearbox. This is designed to accept the 3rd force sliding hub and keep the center of the hub located centrally in place so it doesn't rub against the opposing gear when you're in gear. This was added on. This dimple wasn't part of the original gearbox. They added it after they found out that they needed it. Oh, here's Milton Babarak's missing tooth. Look at this. Oh my gosh, when you put this thing in first gear and started to move, you go, oh, it's horrible. I mean, you're just like, oh my God, you can't use first. And there it was, there was the gear lying in the bottom. And you can see there's some wear on these teeth. It's not a nice lay gear, but oh my gosh, why would this tooth be missing? Somebody must have moved it into gear when the car was in motion. That's all I can imagine. This is the MGA or MGB gearbox. In fact, this looks like this has got a 23 spline clutch on it, and it looks like an MGB box to me, but they all look the same. This ribbing that goes up the top here, it was added on the very latest MGA boxes to make them just a little bit stronger. So this is a lot more durable gearbox than the TD gearbox. But the pieces that you always need for an MGA gearbox rebuild, you always need a new second gear synchro. You always need that. You almost always need a lace shaft where it wears. They didn't improve this until 1967. And then the year after that, they went to the all synchro box. You need the bolt and bushing for the release bearing fork and a new mount. That's for the MGA gearbox. Here's the wear that occurs on the synchro rings. You get these little guys on the side that look like a house. I call it a house. And as it wears more and more and more, then the ability for the synchro to work lessens, and you grind going into gear. So this is really common with all the brass synchros. And they use brass synchros in 3rd and 4th, right from, in our case, right from 54 through 67. But around 1964, they changed to a steel second gear synchro in that MGB gearbox. That steel synchro is a whole lot better. So this is the gear, second speed gear, that takes the steel synchro. You can see the little scallops on the teeth, the little scallops. The next picture, this takes the brass synchro. There are no scallops around the engagement teeth. And you cannot mix up the synchros. Brass synchro will not work on a steel synchro gear, and a steel synchro won't work on a brass synchro gear. Absolutely not. Here are the two gears next to each other, and you can see how the one is scalloped. So you can put a steel synchro into an MGA gearbox, but you need the gear and you need the synchronizer too. Here's some missing engagement teeth. These teeth, these tall teeth down here, these are the permanently engaged teeth. Whoops, going too fast. Now, can I back this thing up? I don't know. Yep, there we go. These are the helical gears down here that are always engaged and always turning the speed gears. But these are the teeth that actually get engaged when you go to change from first into second, or second into third, or third into fourth. These are the little tiny engagement teeth that carry all the power from the engine. It's unusual to see them broken off. Some racers knock off every other tooth so that engagement can be faster. Here's the front cover. You really can't see, I've got a front cover, it comes up in a later slide, but you can see over on the left-hand side here that the lay gear in this hole, the lay gear, the end of the lay gear has a cutaway in it, and it slips into this front cover and it holds it in place so it can't spin unless it starts spinning, and then it eats up the inside of the front cover. This is a good one. First and second gear work just fine, but you put it in third and fourth, car goes nowhere because it's completely disconnected from the main shaft. Feels fine, doesn't make any bizarre noises. I've seen this twice, and maybe other people, maybe Barney's seen it or something or heard about it, but it's pretty unusual. But you know, first, second, you can sit there, change all 5 gears, reverse 1, 2, 3, 4. Start off in first, great. Going to second, great. Going to third, changes into third, just fine. But there's no motion that gets to the rear wheels. It's a hoot. Well, it's a hoot unless you're the one who has to pay for it. But here's another lay gear. I don't know why I put that in there again, just to remind you that that's what gets chewed up. Oh, here's one which is look at how deeply these teeth are mangled. And this is the first gear on the main shaft. So the other gear, the gear before, is the lay gear, but the teeth that engage, whoops, sorry, but the teeth that engage in there from the first gear, this thing is real, to use that common breakfast expression, that this guy's really toast. Here's a front cover. This is from an MGB. And if you want to put an MGB release bearing on your MGA gearbox and run an MGB diaphragm clutch on your MGA engine, which makes sense, it's lighter and it's cheaper to buy. You've got to change the front cover and the release bearing fork both so that it works, and the flywheel. So it's lined up. Here's a first motion shaft with a broken helical gear on it. Find all kinds of weird stuff. How does that even happen? Oh, maybe the spigot bush is real bad in the back of the crankshaft, and the first motion shaft is wallowing all around. Maybe some little piece of something fell off, something got caught in the gears as they're going around. That's catastrophic damage. No way to fix that other than replace it. The very earliest MGAs did not have a front rubber lip seal. They've got a scroll thread wound into the front cover. All Sprigget gearboxes have this. The improvement on the Sprigget gearbox is the rubber seal, which you can get here. But very early on in the MGAs, they went to a rubber front seal. That works out real well. Here's my cutaway gearbox that I use for doing my gearbox seminars. Doesn't look quite as nice as this. This is probably right when I got the thing done, but I hauled that around on my East Coast tour just a month ago and was able to display it in Hurricane, West Virginia, Richard Reese's house, to a couple of guys, to half a dozen guys, show them how it worked. And when I was in Carl Ware's seminar in Charleston, South Carolina, I was able to use this. So this is the first motion shaft out here. These teeth are connected to the first motion shaft. And then call that the fourth speed gear, really isn't a speed gear, but call it that. That's the third speed gear, the second speed gear, and the first speed gear. Then we got a separate reverse wheel. That's why it's an all synchro gearbox. On the earlier MGA, MGB gearboxes, T-type gearboxes, and all the Sprigget gearboxes, this gear here, this course gear is on the outside of the first, second sliding hub. And you don't have a first speed gear. So I think that's probably it. That's the end of that. Now let's see if I can make this not work. Stop share. There we go. Okay. So that's my quick experiment to see if I can make sharing work. We're up to 149 people, almost as many as we had last week. So let me ask and see if there's anyone who's got Gearbox questions first. I see there's some up on chat, but well, we'll take the first one just to open it up from Rob. MGB, 3 synchro assembly problem. The box binds up when installing the extension. About a 1/4 inch until extension and main flanges are tight. Unit tightens up. Seems like the spline end going into the last bearing, the tail shaft bearing, is tight. I checked the 3rd, 4th synchro hub, and the asymmetrical hub is facing forward. The front cover's on, main bearing's flush in the gearbox. Any suggestions? Well, sometimes when you're assembling up the gearbox, it will tighten up until you get everything into place. And then it all, you pull everything the way it's supposed to, and it loosens back up again. So when you're putting that rear tail shaft on, I guess that's redundant, a rear is a tail shaft. You're forcing that first motion shaft forward into an unnatural position. And it might be that if you can tighten up that tail shaft and put the rear flange on, then it'll be okay. I don't know, Rob, are you on? You can unmute yourself. We'll wait for Rob to see if he can come in here.
Hello, John. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep. You talked to me on the phone about this, didn't you?
Yeah, I was doing 3 gearboxes at once, and the first one went together perfect. Didn't have any of these issues like you're describing on the assembly. The second one, I put the 3/4 synchro hub in backwards, and
Yep.
which frustrated me because you got to take everything out to flip it around.
Yep.
So I confirmed that on this third one, but the third one, as I'm tightening up that last housing, I can hear it popping as I'm going around and around, tightening up all the flange heads. And I'm like, boy, this just feels like there's too much.
Can you get the rear flange on? Can you get the rear flange on and start the nut and tighten up the nut at the same time you're tightening the tail shaft?
Yes.
You could try that.
Okay. And that's
You could
what we'll do.
you could try that and just see if by pulling the main shaft towards the rear. I know when we're assembling all synchro gearboxes, there's some popping that you get in there. You just go, oh my gosh. Is this because you don't want to break a flange off the tail shaft, and that's why you tighten it round,
Yeah, I'm not getting enough pressure that I'm concerned about ripping an ear off, but it's just tighter than the other two.
Yeah.
And I can see some score marks on the race of the last bearing where the spline interfaces with it.
It's an interference fit. Not much. It can't be too much interference fit, but it's an interference fit so that the tail shaft goes through the inner race of that rear bearing, and doesn't freewheel inside it.
And when I take it apart, the main bearing in the main case, it wants to move backwards, maybe 3/8 of an inch. It comes out of the housing basically. So then I have to tap it. Then I tap it back in and just go at it gingerly until I get that spline free at the tail end, and then I scratch my chin.
Well,
But
if
I'll
you
go
could-
ahead and, you want me to tighten up the flange with the last nut and take that distance tube and squeeze everything on the main shaft?
Just tighten it all together, tighten the,
Okay,
of course, you got the gasket, you know, and of course, it's got the goo on it, and you've only got a certain amount of time to get this whole thing put together before the gasket goo dries. So,
yeah, no, well, I got smart and I bought a few extra gasket sets, so.
and so, yeah, those
All right.
gasket sets are cheap. Is there anybody else
Yeah.
who's used to doing these 3 single gearboxes that wants to weigh in on this?
Yeah, John, this is Barney. I think I got an answer here.
Yeah,
The rear bearing in the ball bearing in the MGA 1600 type box and early Bs,
yeah,
that's actually floating in the housing. When you tighten up the rear flange, that gets captured tight against the long spacer tube. So
Right.
the bearing becomes part of the shaft. And to make up for all the tolerances, it floats in the housing. There's a big snap ring at the back of the housing, but it doesn't really retain the bearing in there. The bearing goes in and then the snap ring goes in and there's some space behind it. So if you tighten all this stuff up, the big bearing outer race can float endwise in the housing. And as you're pushing this housing off, you get some pry bars to pull it off because it's sometimes pretty tight in the housing. And when it goes back on the same way, like you said, you can either put the flange on the back and then press it together that way, push it on, or you can put the housing on and keep tapping the bearing in it like a hammer and punch. Push the housing in, it doesn't go anymore. Grab a hammer and punch, tap on the bearing, see if it slides farther forward, and then push the housing a little farther. But that rear bearing is sliding in the housing, but it's a locational clearance fit. It's virtually zero clearance. And sometimes they hang up and act like they're press fit. You just have to force it.
well, so there's another idea, Rob. Although be
Yep.
careful about using a punch and a ball bearing, because all it's gonna do is slip. It's gonna do is slip into the cage, and if you tap the cage, it's like, oh my gosh, now what, you know? So,
Yeah, you want to be sure you tap on the inner race or the outer race. Don't
Yeah.
tap on the cage.
I was gonna say, I have to get to the inner race because I've got the seal already in place.
okay, all right, sure, of course you would.
This has got the felt, and I don't even know if they make the felt anymore, but it looked good, so I left it alone and didn't replace it.
Okay,
But yeah,
Okay.
all right, well, I will try to put it back together using the flange instead to try to push that bearing along with the housing. Maybe that'll resolve
Okay.
my issue.
okay.
Great, appreciate it, thank you.
Oh, I thought of another thing too, and that is if it's off, you can always take some, I don't know. Everybody says, oh, use real fine sandpaper. Well, it just take it a month and a day to get any metal off there. But if you took some 220 paper or something and you cut a strip and then did it on the shaft, you know, in four different directions, to try to just get a tiny little metal off the main shaft. You don't want to take it too much off, you know.
Right.
But anyway, so that's something too. So
Very good.
okay,
All right, I got choices now.
good.
Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome. Let's see. Outer strip on my doors. So anyway, the next one we got is from down south, about a midget 1500, not about a gearbox. So let me just ask if anyone's got any more comments or notes or questions about gearboxes.
John, this is Eric. I've got a question.
Yeah,
So I had posted it, but I posted before you came on, so I don't guess you could see it. Got a 51 TD and it jumps out of third gear on deceleration, pops out of third gear.
okay.
So I haven't pulled the transmission. I've never done transmission work, but I'm comfortable with engine work, and I just never have worked on a transmission. So I've been reading and stuff, and I'm gonna pull it out of the car and see what I can find. But I thought I would ask if there's any common issues that cause that, and if you have any tips on what I should be looking for on that.
Well, I go back to the easiest, cheapest stuff first, right?
Right.
So that is take the cover off and put a stronger spring or shim the spring on the third floor sliding shaft, right? Because if that ball stays in the divot in the shaft, it won't be so easy to fall out of third gear. The real problem is that the main shaft is sitting too far to the rear. Okay,
Okay.
so you've got to look in there, and if it isn't going to be very much. It might be as much as like 1/8 of an inch or something or other. And then the question is, how do you get the main shaft to sit forward? But if you take a look at the way that it's assembled, there ought to be a way. I got my eyes closed now. I'm just trying to think of how you're going to do this. And I think you've got to put it, you're going to end up having to put a shim. Help me out here. Put a shim in front of the tail shaft bearing to push the whole thing forward.
Okay.
I'll think
With
about
that-
that.
with
You can
the
call me
crosswalk.
tomorrow and I'll talk to you more about it. But that's the problem. And those engagement teeth, those little tiny engagement teeth that I showed you, now those are worn now. So it's got to
Right.
even, it's got to even cover a little bit more than maybe it would if they were brand new. But you
Right.
don't need to spend $1,000 on 2 gears. You've got to increase the ball pressure, or if you actually have the gearbox apart, you can take that divot out of the shaft and make it just a little tiny bit deeper,
Okay.
So that would help too. There's a trick on doing T-types because you get a walking first gear all the time. He always wants to pop out of first gear. So the easiest, cheapest way is just hold it in gear while you're in first gear. But if you're rebuilding it, there's a ball that goes in on the top. There's a cross drilling that's got a couple of balls to keep you from being in the same gear at the same time. And you can cut away. You can cut another relief on the side of the 1-2 sliding shaft on that. Put a ball and a spring in there underneath a screw that comes in from the right hand side, and that gives you double the ball pressure. And so it'll want to stay in gear a little bit more. But the forces inside there are just so enormous, So my
Okay.
MGA gearbox falls out of third gear now, sometimes on deceleration. It's the same thing. And I asked Barney about it one time. Barney said there was either something in the workshop manual or a confidential service memorandum about just hogging that little scoop out of the shaft just a little bit more, but it all has to do with the position of the main shaft. So
Okay. Sounds great. Thank you.
John,
welcome.
can I mention, this is
Yeah.
Judd. I didn't know about the main shaft possibly needing to be shifted, and mine would jump out a second. So I bought a new shaft because I thought maybe the hole was defectively in the wrong place. And the new one, of course, was absolutely identical. We ended up filling it and drilling a new hole, making a new detent hole. It's not popped out of gear for 2 years. But if Eric is going to take his box out, you should caution him, do not disassemble the sliding hub unless you have the fancy MG, this one's homemade, tool to get those damn little ball 13, I believe it is, ball bearings back in place.
Yeah.
And when you do take it apart, make sure you do it in a bag because they'll be all over your shop. And the other two essential tool, and John, I don't know if it's true on all the other transmissions or just the T-types, but if you don't have a spare sacrificial lay shaft, you'll never get those gears in the bottom of the box back together. So
even in the workshop manual, they tell you they talk about the special tool. And so the last time I did one, which was in Savannah, Georgia, on my customer's workbench, I went to Home Depot and got a 1/2-inch dowel and put like two coatings of masking tape on it, and that was just enough. And you grease all those bearings. I love grease. Just love red grease. Anyone's who worked with me goes, oh my God, nobody ever used as much red grease as you do. Anyway, you hold those all in place with the grease, and then you use that sacrificial shaft, which is just as long as the lay gear and all the washers on the end. Yes, yes. Now you can get those balls back into place by using a hose clamp and nails. It's tedious, but how else are you going to do it?
A hose clamp and what?
Nails.
Nails.
So
Oh,
you
okay.
put a hose clamp around the gear, and then you can see where the balls are. And of course, those are all being held in place with lots of grease. And then you take a nail and you can run the nail down, and that'll push it in far enough that you can slip the the outside of that sliding hub onto the inside.
Mhm.
Great.
Eric, I
Good
don't know
point.
anymore, but I can mail you that tool if you end up needing it. Contact John. He can get in touch with me, or I'll get in touch with you on a private email.
I appreciate it. I think somebody in our local club has one that he's used, so I thought I'd hit him up for it. So I ordered the video on rebuilding from the MG Car Club in England, and so I've watched it, and they show how you have to do the lay shaft, you know, to get it to drop down and to get everything out and everything.
You can send me an email, and I'll send you back my T-type rebuilding stuff.
Awesome.
So,
Thank you. I will do that.
I've got a let me come down here just a second here. I'm all excited about sharing screen here. Just a minute. Here, there we go. Share. So here I've got a lot of information about, you know, here's the gear ratios, you know, and so forth. But if I just a minute here. I'm going to stop sharing that, and I'm going to reshare. Just a minute. So here, for instance, I've got here. Well, this is for synchro, but these are all the, you know, I've got lots of lists and stuff to follow. So if some of that can be of assistance to you, just send me an email and I'll send that information along. This is the type of stuff that I'll have on my website after the first of the year, so I don't have to answer all the individual emails. So
Awesome. Thank you so much.
do we have any other questions about gearboxes before we start talking about midget 1500s?
John, it's George.
Yes, George.
I have a overdrive transmission, Black Label, which is like a 74. That was in my B, and in June I lost second gear. The only way I can get into second gear is if I get the RPM just right, and it would go into second gear. If not, it would grind. So I removed that transmission. I've got another overdrive in there now, and I'm going to have to take that apart this winter. Is there any suggestions on what the main cause of that is?
The cause is a broken bulk ring. It's called in the workshop manual, it's called a balking, B-A-U-L-K-I-N-G, balking ring, but it's a synchro ring. And that's the thing with the ears on it that I showed and talked about, the second gear synchro, which is always being worn, the brass ones. But the balking rings don't wear like that. The little houses, the three little ears, the three little houses don't wear. It actually cracks. There's a crack right in the middle of the ring, and it's a tapered. The gear's got a cone on it, and on the inside of the balking ring, it's also that same cone, and it's supposed to come down and grab it. But if it's broken, it just opens up and slips. So it doesn't do anything. So it's that and that only. So what you want to do in this case, in your case, is keep track of those synchro rings and take the take the fourth gear synchro ring and put it on second, because that's tried and tested. And when you buy the new one, put it up on fourth, because you hardly ever need one up there. When you're shifting up into, you're never shifting down into fourth. You're only shifting up into fourth. And 1 out of 100 new synchro rings breaks. Oh. So if you put it on second, it's like you're no better, so take one that's tried and tested, or take it from first gear and move it, because nobody shifts down into first. So that it hasn't had much use. That's it. It's as easy as that. You can take the whole friggin' gearbox apart, to get to it, but it's pretty easy. I'm going to Rochester for the Western New York MG Car Club Christmas party on the 17th, maybe, of December, but I don't know. I don't know if I've got time to stop by and help you take that apart or not, but you're in Buffalo, right?
Yes,
Yep.
John. Tonawanda. I also want to wish you a happy birthday.
Oh, that's real kind. Yeah. It
All right.
happened. I'm glad I have them, but they happen quickly,
I know they do. My birthday was the 25th.
Oh, congratulations.
So we're very near each other. Okay, John, thank you very much.
Hey, you're very welcome. So do we have some?
John?
Yes.
Quick question, quick thing.
Yeah.
Do you allow types of companies in this discussion?
Yeah,
And
sure.
when I say that, okay. Angle
If
makes,
you're gonna rail against somebody, you just gotta be judicious.
no.
Okay.
In doing in the synchro world, I would replace all 4 of them. We're talking $25 a piece roughly. And I would suggest going to Angle, because they use county synchro rings. Another company in the United States uses their own synchro rings, and I've had some real problems with them.
Okay. Just another comment about synchro rings is that you should, just to make sure that they're going to be okay and work, you should lap them in. So I had in my shop, when I had all my parts and everything, we could put sliding hubs up and put the synchro rings in and move the speed gears up against them. Use real fine valve lapping compound, and you could tell if the synchro rings are working or not, because you'd be holding the speed gear with your hand on the lathe, and all of a sudden, whoa, it started spinning, so you couldn't hold it. Yeah.
But
I've used
brand X synchros, and I've had to do that. But with county, I've been very, I guess,
Okay.
lucky or fortunate.
Okay. Because I'm twice bitten. I like using used ones because they're tried and tested. So, but anyway, those are for George. These are two different approaches. So. And like all general contractors, when you're doing the work yourself, you got to decide whose advice you're going to take. So, yep. Yep. Okay, do we have any other Gearbox questions, comments?
John, I'd like to chime in if I could.
Yes, sir. Pat.
A couple tricks that I've learned over the years with T-type gearboxes. So let's see. There, now my video is working. This is a top cover.
Yeah.
If you look over where the detent springs are.
Oh, is that cool or what?
Allen screws. So
oh my gosh.
With the transmission in the car, you can
Yep.
test drive it, increase or decrease your detent pressure.
How do you keep those from moving, or don't they?
Well, they're pretty snug. I'm not
Okay.
very good at drilling and tapping, so and then a little blue Loctite when I'm finished. And then as far as the synchro tool, this is a trick I learned in high school, and you can tell it's been a while since I've been in high school, but a hose clamp, and I used to use an assortment of pocket screwdrivers, but now I've modified it to where I use a proper nail. And if you look at the end, after I've assembled the synchro hub with the springs and the balls, I put a hose clamp on it, slide it into the outer ring, what I forget what you call it, striking dog, I guess.
Yep.
And then I put these nails in, which I've ground the tips and put an angle on them. So that slides in between the hose clamp and the ball. And then I rotate it 180 degrees so the ball is contacting the backside and it is holding the ball in. And once that's in position, I take a hammer. I don't use the hammer as a hammer, just as a convenient hunk of wood. Put the handle of the hammer down and pop it with my hand. And 9 times out of 10, it's together.
Very cool.
For rookies, I would suggest they put the assembly in a box in case the balls do pop out, or they can put a rag over it. And sometimes it takes 2 or 3 tries, but man, it's sure much cheaper than the factory tool, which good luck on finding one. So
Well, we always took the old outside rings, the sliding hubs, and ground, ground slots in those, and that's what I use, and it's just easy schmeezy. But when you're doing one, you got to one off. A hose clamp and nails, that everybody's got nails and a hose clamp and a grinder. So that's real cool.
Yep.
I love that idea with the Allen screws. I've never seen that before in my life. That is such a good idea.
And that's a trick I learned from a buddy of mine who did Hewland gearboxes for race cars.
Okay.
So adapted it to T-types, and it does work very well. And anything to save yanking that tranny out again. And those parts, as you know, are very expensive. So
Yes.
Enough out of me. Thanks, John. Really
Hey,
appreciate
thank
it.
you. Love that idea. All right, we're still hunting for more gearbox ideas.
Hi, John, Neil Bryden speaking. How are you?
Great.
Good. I got a 1964 MGB. It won't downshift into second without grinding.
Yep,
But
second
it's
gear
okay.
synchro.
Yeah, second gear synchro.
Second gear synchro, and with a 64, it's probably a brass synchro. So when you buy, you have to look, and again, there are two different gears. And if you got the scallops, you saw the picture, right, that I put up with the scallops on the teeth. So it's probably a brass synchro, and that's one that I would really urge you to lap into place with valve lapping compound. And if you talk to me tomorrow, I can go into it. Well, I got to think about it some more.
Okay.
Because that's and then it's going to work just spot on right when you put it in the car. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and again, Neil, I've got instructions on how to rebuild that gearbox with just comments and notes and stuff like that. That'll be helpful.
Okay,
I'll send
thanks again.
I'll send that along too. Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so tonight is gearbox heaven. Anything else? Anything else from anybody else on gearboxes?
John, I talked to you last week about my transmission speedometer drive gear was slipping. You told me to tighten up the tail nut there on the transmission. I tried that. I tightened it up as tight as I could, but it still slips. I was thinking maybe I should take the nut off completely and put some oil on it and put it back on again.
Well, it probably isn't that. Do you use an impact gun on it, or how'd you?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's as tight as you have to do it. I always think that there's a possibility. What year is this?
70.
Okay, so you got two bolts that hold that nylon housing in place that hold the speedo gear, right?
Correct.
Okay, so if you take those out, you can get the speedo gear out. It seems to me once in a blue moon, the shaft that goes into that gear freewheels. But it's if you've got an old cable with an old speedo cable you can use.
I only have the cable that's in the car. I don't have another one.
I'm just trying to think of something you can. There's still a couple possibilities. The original cable, the end of the cable was square, and it fit into that square hole. The new cables aren't square, they're elongated. And so they fit in diagonally and they can freewheel in there. So if you take the part of the cable that goes into the gearbox and put it on a hammer, bang, 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 you can spread that out a little bit so you're sure that it fits into the square on the end of the gear. And you can also take the gear out of the gearbox and just look at it. And but you always do the cheapest, easiest stuff first, and that's not easy because you get oil out. It's a real mess. So what I wanted you to do was to try to hold that gear from turning while you turn the drive shaft. You know, because if you can get it to stay still, then something's wrong. You know, the gear slipped off its steel housing or something. But
I'm trying to make a little tool now that bolts onto the two of the bolts on the tail of the transmission there on the flange with a long rod to it, so I can hold it and not let it turn at all, and then try with the hammer again, hammer drill.
oh, okay. Although if you've got a pretty good impact gun, that is it. Yeah, well, it's nicer if you can hold that flange from turning.
Well, that's
and
what I'm
it
trying
might
to do.
be. I'm just thinking maybe there's an Allen wrench that you can put inside that square on the driven gear, so you can hold it and turn the drive shaft at the same time. Maybe there's in your bunch of Allen wrenches that you've got one that'll slip in there and not freewheel, and so you can see if the whole system is turning there.
It doesn't freewheel when it's cold. It's only after it's about 10 minutes of driving. Then it starts freewheeling.
So a suggestion would be to take a large, I don't know, like a 10-penny nail or something, and file it down so it's square, and put that in the shaft, and let it run and see if you can hold it. You know, even grab it with some pliers or something. That'll tell you if it's spinning or not.
Yeah, John, the problem with the Allen wrench is it's a hex and that's a square hole. But these new screwdriver, some of them, I've got a couple of electricians use them that actually have a square tip, and I'm visualizing it. It's just about the right size. You might try that. The square tip screwdrivers that go into light switches and receptacles.
Okay, so we got 3 ideas here. Mine's been debunked with using the Allen wrenches, but yeah, filing something down or using one of those. Of course, the handiest thing is an old Speedo cable. But, yes, those are all good ideas. And so you always do the cheapest, easiest, simplest stuff first. So maybe go out and get the thing hot, and then you don't have to jack up the whole car. Just jack up the right-hand side. Put jack stands underneath the frame and slide underneath there and undo the cable. So
yeah, I got the 90-degree piece on there, so I got to pull that 90-degree piece off and then check it out that way. Yes.
Okay.
Got it.
Okie doke.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
More ideas.
More ideas. Anything to save you from pulling the. I was watching a Three Stooges movie one time, and they had a whole car underneath the hood. The whole thing's apart, and Moe or somebody says, "So what's the squeak look like?" Looking for the squeak. So anything. So all right. So here we go. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Doug.
Thank you. So one of our local guys here has a 74 MGB, and he reported that it got jammed in third gear and he couldn't get it out. So we took it to a garage, had it towed over. They did something to it that said that, and got the gear lever free from third. They claimed it had enough oil in it. And he's coming, and today he says it still shifts, but he's nervous. It feels a little notchy. Any idea what that could be?
No, that's north. That's around Toledo, someplace, right?
where I'm, no, DC.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember because he called me on the phone and then it came up here too. I never got, all I heard was it got fixed. I never found out what happened to it or why. That's so bizarre. It's just such an unusual. So I don't know.
I had a Morris Minor, got jammed in first gear after going down a ridiculously steep slope in first. And I opened it up, didn't have a hammer. I had a couple wrenches and screwdrivers, but I got the side cover off and there was a little ball that was part way out that was keeping the gear from sliding on the shaft. And I was able to use a nail and a rock to tap on it, get that ball back in. The gear slid back into place and it was fine for another 8,000 miles. This was on the side of a mountain in a village in Greece 50 years ago.
Okay. You do what you have to do. I've got a midget gearbox apart right now. Same thing. There's a little tiny pin that keeps that from happening on the later models, maybe. And it's in on the gearbox I'm doing. The pin's in there, but the pin's too short by what 10 thousandths? I don't know, something or other. So the sliding hub, the inside of the sliding hub was able to pop ahead. And those balls popped out, and you put a screwdriver in there and just turn the screwdriver, and it slipped right back into place. But you couldn't do it from the other side. You couldn't make the outside go over the inside. So yeah, that's cool. Love the story in Greece.
John, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I don't see me coming up. It's Rob Tedrow again.
Yeah,
Are the right angle adapters at the speedometer output serviceable?
No,
they are not.
No, I've tried to take everything apart in the car. I just fixed a turn signal switch. I went to the hardware store and got like a number 3 screw. Those are really tiny. To replace a broken connection. I've fixed almost everything and I've never been able to fix those. The secret is get rid of it and then take and buy a longer cable, a cable for an overdrive, and just loop it way underneath the car and bring it straight in. And then you get rid of that 90-degree drive altogether.
Okay.
You just don't want to have a short radius. You just got to let it loose. So you got to run it on top of I think you have to run on top of the cross member, and you can hold anything in place with zip ties. I mean, zip ties must have been invented in 1981, but just when they quit making our cars, because there are all these other brackets and all these other ways of holding stuff in place. The zip ties are just great. So
yeah. That square tang that fits into the speedometer output gear on my right angle looked like it was goobered up. So I took needle noses, and next thing I know, it was unzippering. And I thought, oh, maybe you can put another one in its place. But by the time I pulled and yanked, I destroyed it.
Yeah,
okay.
I took them apart and tried to take we had lots of old Speedo cables at the shop, and I tried to cut them off and put them in there, and no.
Okay.
No, I didn't have
overdrive cable's the way to go.
Yep, the 2738/1830. Yep, that's the 68 through 76. Yep.
You have to put a special washer in there when you take the 90 off?
No, there's supposed to be a little fiber washer, a little tiny fiber washer, and that's a real fine thread. That's a 26 thread per inch thread, British Standard brass thread. And if it's clean, you ought to be able to tighten it up and just give a little bit of a snug with the screwdriver pliers, just a little tiny bit of a snug. But you don't need to have that there. It's nice to have it. That washer. Let's move on here. And then if somebody else has got some more gearbox questions, we can come back to them later. John, this is Dan from Slidell, Louisiana. just outside New Orleans. I have a 77 midget 1500. I'm trying to install new inner and outer weather strip on my doors. I removed the vent window assembly and the seal. I removed the entire cranking mechanism and the window assembly as well. After sacrificing some blood, I managed to get the 2 weather strips installed with their clips, but whenever I put the window back in from the top, anyway, the new strip gets ruined. I don't see any reasonable way to install the weather strip with the glass already inside the door. What am I doing wrong? Chances are, there's also there's more to it here. Chances are the new weather strip isn't as nice as the old weather strip, or the clips that hold the new weather strip aren't as nice as the old ones. That's my go-to, because the easiest thing to do is blame the quality of the parts rather than your mechanical expertise.
The belt strip is definitely not very good.
So maybe I don't know, Brown and Gammons or Moss Europe or NTG Services in Ipswich. Somebody else there. MG Owners Club in Cambridge. They're cheap, and even if you order them from England, they come just as fast if you were to order them from Moss or Engel or Northwest Imports or something, and you might get something that's quite different.
Okay, so I'm not doing anything wrong. But the window has to go in from the top, right? After you're done.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
It has to. Yep.
Okay. And the only other thing that the second part of that was the crank mechanism is different on the passenger side door. And the driver's side door has like 3 nylon rollers and it comes out fairly easy. The passenger side has like a bar that goes across the whole thing. And I'm sure somebody had changed it somewhere along the way. One of them is not original for sure, but I don't know how to get the window out of that side. I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but it's got a slide. It's a whole assembly, like not just.
Yeah, it's one of those jobs that you do that after you get the first one done, which takes you 4 hours, you do the next one in 10 minutes. And then after a year, you forget how you did it. And it's really difficult to talk about that kind of stuff because there's so many moving parts and no one's using the same words. Is there any information in the workshop manual about how to take the window out?
No, it just basically says you tilt the assembly forward and it comes right out type of thing. I'll figure it out. I just thought maybe I was something simple. That's no problem. But I mean, I didn't mean to get into your transmission mess here. But
no. This is the chat section. And we hardly ever have anybody ask about a midget 1500. So yeah.
Yeah, well, luckily my transmission was okay when I had all that apart. So I just put some new oil in it and all that. So
good. Yeah, that's a real common transmission. They use those that got that out of the Austin and Morris Marina, and they use that on the Spitfire, and that's a real common gearbox. So
fantastic. All right, well, thanks a lot, John.
All right, see ya. Okay. Martha Ann, it says, McKillop, I'm working on the motor for my 58 MGA. Since I live at altitude 7,500 feet, I'd like to get close to 9.5 compression ratio. Does this seem reasonable? Yes. I'm looking at skimming the head. Yes, that's how you do it. The machinist suggested grinding down the pistons to make them flat, which could help. I don't understand why there's not a dome on the piston, but there's a couple of things you can do there. But if you skim the head, you can go up to 12. You can get right up there. The only problem in doing this, well, first of all, are you still on, McKillop? You can unmute yourself if you're there. The only problem with skimming the head is that you want to make sure the valve doesn't open so far that it hits the piston. And all the time that I was doing MGs in the shop, we had that happen once. And of course, it was a job that we'd done and sent the car down to Atlanta, I think. And he had to take the head back off, and then he sent it back up to us. Is that the way it worked? Something, I don't know. Anyway, and the valve seats had to be ground, so it moved the valves up into the head just a little bit more because they were hitting. But flat top pistons, the only flat top pistons are the 1622 pistons, as far as I know, that they go in the Mark II engines, and the wrist pins on those are larger. So the other way to get higher compression is to overbore the engine, and you can it's a 1500 MGA. Yes, you can overbore that right up to MGB specs. It'll take it. So there's a couple different ways to go about this, but if you do put in MGB or 1622 pistons, you need different rods because the gudgeon pin diameter is larger.
Hey, John,
Yes.
what about putting a MGB head on it from a low compression engine? That'll really raise up your compression ratio
Okay.
because it's a
don't-
small combustion chamber.
So we are putting an
we are
putting an MGB head on it. And so we'll cut the eyebrows, and that's gotten us up to, I think, like an 8.5. But we still want to try and get a little bit higher for the altitude we're at. And so that's why I was playing with, I talked about overboring it. I don't know if I can. I haven't found anybody that can do the testing to make sure I've got the material to overbore it.
You got plenty of meat. There's plenty of wall thickness there. You can do it. I've done it. I've taken a 1500 block up to MGB 60 over. So.
Okay, and they were talking because the pistons have a slight dish in them about shaving down the pistons. But that then would mean that I'd have to shave down the deck even more, or from other types of cars that I've worked with, I'd have to put longer rods in. But I haven't seen anything that I can get for an MGA to do that.
I think just shaving the head is the easiest, simplest way out of it.
Yeah, but again, putting the late model MGB head, which has a smaller combustion chamber, will really raise up your compression ratio. And then put in your 8.75 to 1 pistons if you can find them, or a racing piston, which is flat top.
So these are some possibilities.
Is it 8.7 or rock top? Okay.
Yeah, try getting a hold of APT in California. They have all kinds of racing stuff, and they might have flat top pistons there.
That's Advanced Performance Technology. I think they're in Riverside. APT. They used to have a website, APT-fast, something like that. But it's look under APT. And can you take those pistons and it sounds so crude. Can you take those pistons and heliarc the top of them and chalk them up and grind them flat? Sounds creepy, but.
Well, that's what we were gonna try to do. But again, I was leery because if I take the material off the top of the piston, then that means I've also got to compensate for what I took off the piston off of either the deck or the head. And I don't want to necessarily go too far either direction. So that's why I was trying to get this group's feedback on, to stay away from it, or, has anybody else done it, been successful with it? Especially since I haven't been able to find push rods to lengthen that if I do grind down those pistons?
I just shave the head and just make sure the valves are recessed enough so that there's no possibility of them exceeding, coming below the deck height.
And also
Okay.
do those eyebrows if you need to.
Yeah, she
Yes,
said
no,
that-
absolutely.
she said she'd already taken care of that, so.
Okay,
So that-
thank you.
yeah. You're welcome. Good luck. Where are you? Colorado Springs or something, or?
I'm a little bit north of Colorado Springs, up on the hillside.
Okay, all right, like up by Breckenridge or something. That seems to me that was 1,000 on top of Denver, so, yeah.
Yeah, not quite there, more Black Forest area. So thank
Good-
you.
Good luck. And you can always just buy a supercharger. That's the,
I'm trying to do it on a little bit of a budget.
okay, all right. All right, and you also asked about a 5-speed that could be used on an MGA. And the only ones I know of are like the river gates and so forth. But what I did on my MGA was put an MGB differential into it, 3.9 differential. You got to correct the speedo if that's of concern. And then it's even a better ratio than an MGB has. So on my MGA, I'm doing 90 miles an hour at $5,000. So
I think that's kind of where I want to try and get to. I mean, I don't know that I want to do 90, but I don't want to be run over.
I found with a 3.9 differential with the standard 1600 engine in my MGA, it needs to be revved a lot, because if you don't keep your revs up, you lose all your torque. So with that differential, so you got to keep your revs up for that lower differential.
but if the engine's balanced, then you've got durability in the engine, and you can run that thing at $4,000 all day. Okay, well, good
This
luck.
gives me a lot. Thank you. It gives me a lot to research, so I appreciate it, gentlemen. Thank you.
Okie doke. Next question up is Pat G with the gearbox question, but we already did that. And here's from Tom to everybody: is it risky to re-arch a TD rear spring? No, it's not. But you take it to a spring shop and have them do it. They've got the ovens. They know what they're doing. They heat them up. I don't know what they do to them. It's a scene out of Dante. All the fire and sparks and so forth. But Tom, are you still on?
Yeah, I took it to a shop, John, and they didn't want to do it because they were afraid it would break. They would break, and I was just gonna see if I could convince them to give it a shot.
Just give it a shot. It's just spring metal. I mean, it's just they're looking at it like a trailer spring or something.
Yeah.
The MGAs and MGBs. Our spring shop had metal that was that wide, so there's never a problem putting another leaf in it. But if they snap the main leaf, the one with the curls in it on the end,
right?
You buy new springs. I mean,
Yeah. They wanted to put a new leaf on it, but they couldn't find one from their 6 suppliers. So
right,
I'm going to try to get them to go ahead and do it.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks.
Hey, good luck. Where are you calling from?
I'm from Northern Virginia, outside of DC.
All right.
Yeah. Take care.
Thank you. Martha, back to you. Just because you got another note in here, you can call me tomorrow. My number's on my website, University. Oh, speaking of that, when anybody goes to my website, universitymotorsltd.com, there's that PayPal button up in the corner. It's real kind I do appreciate your contributions. I do recognize you here. So thank you very much. But Martha, yes, you can call me tomorrow. I'm more than happy to talk to you. And also don't forget about Barney's site. I mean, MGA Guru. Barney's got 4,000 pages, not 4,000 pages of engine, but 4,000 pages of stuff. So, and being the general contractor, which you are, that means that you got to weigh all the information that you get against whatever your machine shop will do and whatever seems to make the most sense, and choose a path and go for it. There's lots of different ways to get to wherever you're going. So anyway, you can call me tomorrow anytime. Let's see. Judd, homemade tool for putting together
That's what I was showing earlier.
Yep.
We talked about.
Yep. Okay, Peter McCarthy, 72 midget, 1275 engine, preparing to reinstall the engine after body restoration, wondering about the rear oil seal on the engine. There isn't one. Didn't seem to leak much when it was last on the road. Moss wants $300 for conversion oil seal. I haven't seen those. I didn't even know they had them. Of course, it makes sense that they'd have them. I don't know anything about those at all. Does it make sense to put one on? Only if you talk to other people who've already put them on and they work. Because there are some problems with some other models about making them work. It's really dicey sometimes making those things work. If it's a 72, you've got a draft on the inside of the engine. And so there's always a vacuum on the inside of the engine, as long as you're running your dual carburetors. Are you still on?
Yes, I am.
Peter, okay. So if you've got, there's always a draft on the inside of the engine. So if you're inhaling, you're pulling the air out of the engine, then it's going to tend to pull the air through that rear seal and pull the oil back into the engine. But it is a scroll thread. And if it's not good, it always leaks some, always, So, but installing one usually involves having the crank out of the engine somehow to do some more work to it.
Yeah, the Moss says you don't need to take the crank out, but you have to be very precise about installing their kit. However, I do not remember oil spots on the floor when I did have this car on the road, so I think I'm going to go with it.
Well, the cheapest solution here, of course, is a rectangular pizza pan with kitty litter in it, unless you got a cat outside, and then you'll find out he discovers the kitty litter in there too. But yeah, that's always the way. It's usually when you're just getting banned from your brother-in-law who's just built a brand new house and they got fresh concrete, and you go park there and they go, oh yeah, Peter's been here in his car, look there.
Yep. Thank you, John.
Hey, good luck. David Vasily, who did the assembly of new MG gearboxes before they were mated to the engines? Do you mean at the factory? Is that the question that you're asking, David? Because I don't know that answer. I don't even, someplace within the huge organization there, they were building them.
Well, I was wondering if they had a subcontractor that was assembling gearboxes, because listening to all this discussion about gearboxes, it seems like a exact science on how these things were put together. And I was wondering, well, who did it originally? And did they have, training manuals about how to assemble gearboxes, how they train their people to do them?
Well, there were just a whole bunch of guys from age 18 to 65 working on the floor. It was just a factory job. It's like, put these shafts in and push it down the line. I doubt one person did the whole gearbox. But that was within.
So the gearbox is assembled in Abington then?
No. Abington was an assembly plant. They didn't make anything except MGs. Okay. They didn't make the interior or the gearbox or anything. There's some real early films that have been switched over to video and DVD and they have a flame they're making part of a chassis. That's it. That's, I think, the only thing they ever made there. They didn't make anything there. They just brought everything in, and the engines and gearboxes arrived assembled. So it's just packaged into, all set to go. So I'm sure they weren't test run. I mean, I've got a customer who ran a General Motors engine plant, and he said the line was 1/4 of a mile long. At the end of the line, one motor came out every minute or something or other. They don't test run those, because they know they're going to be okay. They keep doing the same thing. So anyway, that was part of the British Leyland system, or BMC, or Nuffield. That was someplace inside those organizations. That's where they made that stuff. All right, Judd, we talked about the detent hole on the shaft. Yep. So if you move the detent hole on the shaft, then that means that maybe now it doesn't fall out a third, but maybe it falls out a fourth, because it doesn't move it as far. But
when we had the thing apart and went through, shifting through all the gears, for some reason, all of them dropped right into place. First, third, and fourth. But second was 1/8 of an inch off.
Oh my gosh.
And it wouldn't go in. Well, of course, if I adjusted the guts to put it in place, then all the others would be 1/8 of an inch off.
Right.
I don't know the transmission had clearly, somebody had been in it before us. I don't know what they did, but so we ended up just filling that hole, polishing it back down, drilling a new hole where the ball wanted to be, and it's worked. I don't think we solved the problem, but we solved the symptom. And that, so as far as I'm concerned, the problem.
Got it. Yep, you've gone on mute. Yep, thank you very much. Thanks. Pat, Pat, with your nifty modification for T-type transmissions, that is so friggin' cool. That is so nice. Crystal Johnson, I'm getting a ticking noise in the upper portion of the engine on a newly rebuilt 18V engine. Ticking noise. The engine has only 30 minutes runtime on it. So far, I've set the timing, set the rockers to 15 thousandths, checked it twice, tuned the rebuilt HS4 carburetors, set the idle to 900. So the ticking up there, the ticking can be from, most often, Crystal, you still on?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, the ticking is almost always from the valve train. So if you take a 10 thousandths feeler and take the valve cover off, start the car up, and if your idle's down at 900, there's a little bit of splashing, but not very much. If you left that valve cover off for half an hour, your ignition coil might end up with some oil on it, but it isn't too bad. And just take that feeler gauge and push it between the rocker and the valve, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And if it's in the valve train, if the noise is in the valve train, when you put that feeler gauge in there, it'll disappear. So you say, well, it's on number 4. Okay, so it's on 4. You don't know what the problem is yet, but it's on number 4. So you can readjust number 4. It could be that the lifter's bad, the cams, I know it's all new stuff. Something's going on though. So if it's noticeable, you've got a later model car, don't you? Isn't that
I've got a 70 MGB.
Okay, well, you can tighten those valves down to 13. There's no problem there. It'll still run just great, and sometimes that'll get rid of the tick too. But if you want to find out which one it is, put it like a 10 thousandths feeler between the valve and the rocker while it's running, and
Well,
see
it's running, okay.
when it goes silent. So
John, other than the embarrassment of it, is there anything wrong with it ticking? I mean, my TD ticks like crazy, and I think I've got the thing that's supposed to be like at 19 thousandths or something.
well, of course, it's going to tick like crazy at 19. I told this story once on here before. It was really early on. It was like 1982. And I just started writing. I started writing technical stuff in, I don't know, 78, maybe 77. And I mean, like I write now and answer. And this guy calls me from Maine and he says, I bought my TC new. He says, but it just drives me crazy to drive it. It's just so ticky. And I said, so set the valves at 15. And he says, well, the brass tag on the side says 19. I said, dude, you called me. Come on, you know? So he set him at 15, called me back the next day and he goes, oh my God, I love driving my car. It's like, what, you bought this in 1949? You know, and you know, really? And you haven't been able to drive it because it's too ticky? So anyway, yeah, it just tightened it up a little bit. All the Triumphs run at 10 thousandths. So I mean, as long as you, I mean, it's all set up and designed to run at a certain clearance. But gosh, I mean, the difference between 19 and 15 is oh, you look like you got pretty fine hair, but you know, so it's a piece of coarse hair, you know, so it isn't very much. The other thing with the T-types, of course, is the underside of the rockers they get just garbaged, and they get those great big slots cut in them from where they've been rubbing against the top of the valves. We used to take those out to the machine shop. They'd weld them up and resurface them and put that arc back on them, and it'd be great. So anyway. Okay. Now,
it was just kind of embarrassing. My neighbor came over to help me tune the carbs, right? Because I've never tuned carbs before. So we get it up and running and I get the idle down and he goes, you know, they're making a lot of noise, a lot of ticking noise. Is that normal for a bee? And I looked at him and says, I don't know. So I figured, well, let me ask a question.
You've been working on this for the better part of 4 years, haven't you?
2 years now.
2 years. All right. Okay.
2
Yeah.
years. And I actually drove it out of the garage down to the end of the driveway and back up. I'm kind of leery putting it out on the road just yet, but I actually moved it.
Well,
it's about 95. It's about 95% done. I'm still waiting on seat belts coming in from Tyler. You know, the 3 points, right? So once I get the seat belts, then I'll start putting the front hood on and take it down and get it inspected.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, most people have to develop confidence. Plus, there's a shakedown too. And you just keep driving larger and larger concentric circles around your house. First time out is 2 miles, and then you sort of go 5, and then you go, well, I went 5, maybe I can go 10. And just develop your confidence. But yeah, and if you got any more questions about that, you can call me. I'll talk to you about it.
Thank you. All right.
You're welcome. Mr. Bueller, Don Bueller. I had the same problem, but after a seminar with John Twist and some consultation, I found the nut was in the center of the propeller shaft, was not torqued to the proper limit, and that fixed the problem. So I think I think he's talking about that slip and speedo. That's probably it. So Jeffrey in Nashville, Tennessee. I wonder if you're ever in the area. I was in Hurricane, West Virginia. Does that count? I've been restoring
It doesn't count.
Okay, all right.
Close.
Nashville, that's JD's territory down there, right?
That's correct.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. I've been restoring my 62 MGA for 36 years.
I'm a little slow.
Yeah, hey, everyone's got a different approach, So obviously not really dedicated to the cause. Yeah,
So-
I'd be happy to come down sometime. Absolutely, Nashville. That's not on my way to Alabama or on my way home. I'll do another East Coast tour next year. It's a difference between 36 and 37 years. And I
Not much.
can, since I've already been to Hurricane, West Virginia, I can angle my way home. So I come through Nashville. It's kind of out of the way from East Coast, but hey, hey. So anyway, but contact me, talk to me. We can work something out for sure.
So you know
John,
JD?
John, are you going to go to Memphis?
Um,
Are you
I've been
going
to
to go to the
Memphis.
GT 48?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So that's close to Memphis.
Yeah, that's next summer. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's only 36 and a half then.
So-
Yeah.
So that's not far from Nashville.
So
Correct.
what's next summer in Memphis?
It's the NAMGAR, North American MGA
Right.
Register,
Yes.
GT48. And
I didn't realize that. That's great.
Yep.
I'm
And there'll
NAMGAR,
be,
but I didn't realize that.
all the MG meets that are hosted in the center of the country seem to draw more cars than the ones out on the coasts. Don't know, just the way it is. So there easily could be 125, 150 MGAs there,
I think it's June 12 to 16 or something.
Of 23.
Yes.
Of course,
Thank you.
all the MGs you'll be looking at will be all done, but it'll give you some excitement and drive to get yours done. So.
Oh, mine will be done. Mine's basically done.
Oh, okay.
As I tell my wife, I've got $52,000 in a car that's sitting still, but everything's new. It's just not assembled. But it did run Saturday, and that's the first time in a very long time. And I did drive it on the street without any concern about anybody that might have mistakenly stepped in front of me. But fortunately, everything did work.
Very nice.
So that was a rare moment, to say the least.
I make the joke that my last ex-wife asked me one time, she was just incredulous, and she said, why would someone spend $100,000 to restore a car that's only worth $15,000? And I said, well, Lynn, do you know anyone who owns a cat? You can get way upside down on a cat. So and cats die. MGs, you can always get back on the road. So
I thought I'd share a real quick story as it relates to job security, which obviously you have. But JD, when I met JD for the first time this year, I asked about tinkering on my car. And he said, well, we'll get you scheduled. I'm booking for November of 24. And he said, that's just for an oil change. So if there are any young guns on this who are looking at a career pathway, I tried to get my son to apprentice. JD said, I just don't have time to even apprentice someone. But he said, if anybody had the interest, the demand is for a good mechanic, obviously, particularly a specialist, is measurable.
everybody's saying the same thing. Glenn's MG service in Tampa, St. Pete. Yeah, he's desperate. Paul Deershaw just retired but his shop is continuing in Denver. Those aren't, I don't know about I think they both, I know Glenn takes in some other cars besides MGs. I stepped away from my shop and Forrest Johnson runs mine now under the name of the Rusty Moose Garage. And he's just in the process of transitioning ownership again. So yeah, it's man, if you can learn it and you love what you do. I mean, why would you do something you don't want to do? But how can you not love working on MGs? Oh my gosh. I worked on them in the winter in Michigan when they were primary transportation without a hoist, and you jack them up in the air. And I remember the icicles dripping salt water in my mouth when you're underneath, to replace an exhaust, which they've torn off going over a lump of ice in the road or something. I've been doing this a while. What a hoot.
Those are the stories that make an MG great. One other quick story. My father in 1985, I believe, asked me about, maybe before 85. I bought this car when I was 15 and I'm 60. So a while. He asked me about a top. I had taken the top carriage out. Well, I didn't have a top in it at all. And he said, when are you going to get a top? And I said, I'll get one. I'll get one. 2 months goes by. When are you going to get a top? I'll get one. Long story short, at some point, a top arrived in the box from J.C. Whitney, whom I don't even know if they exist still, but in 1980, whatever they did. And after a couple of months, he stopped me again. And he said, you got the top, didn't you? Yes, sir, I did. He said, so when are you going to put it on? I said, oh, you never said anything about having to put it on. You just said I had to have it. So to this day, that top, which is also 30 something years, is still in the box. I looked at it this summer and with much surprise, I'm not sure delight, but certainly surprise, the clear plastic on the top still looks brand new. It hasn't yellowed. It hadn't become brittle. I was amazed.
You want to, next summer, you'll want, if you ever want to fit that, you want to hang it up, put some weights on the bottom of it, stretch it a little bit, get it out in the sun, because it's probably 4 inches short now. A lot of that plastic stuff just contracts.
They're convertibles. I didn't think we're supposed to put a top on them, so I'll still hold to that story.
You got an MGA, right?
Yes, sir. 62.
That's not a convertible. That's a roadster. It's a convertible. It's got roll-up windows.
Well, there we go. Well, it's a roadster, but nonetheless, it's a roadster without a top.
Yeah,
You're not alone, Jeffrey.
My mentor was a World War II fighter pilot, and he had a 70-something model MGB, and he put the top down in March and back up in October, and he had an umbrella. And he said the equivalent of 240 AC, but his was 240. He said the windows were always down, the two windows are down, and he said, I'm always going 40 miles an hour, so I never get wet. And it worked. So I adhere to his philosophy as well.
It depends which way. It depends which way the rain is coming. If it's coming at you, at 40, it goes over you.
That's a technical matter. That's like 1,000th of a whatever. It's a technical matter.
Okay, all right. Okay. Hey, thank you. From John Fabry. Yes.
Dean Webb here.
Hey, yes.
Yeah, I'm finally gotten modernized and got a camera and a microphone so I can see and talk now.
Great.
And before I'd post questions and you'd ask if I was here, but my other laptop or my other computer didn't have the right equipment. So now I'm set. So could I ask a question? I'm sorry to butt in.
Sure.
Could I ask a question about a 71 MG midget?
Okay.
I'm restoring it. Got it completely stripped down. It's going to the sandblaster and all. Rebuilding the front suspension and the steering. Is there a trick to getting the fulcrum pin out that's seized? And also
no.
tie rod end, not the end, but the tie rod. How much tolerance do you have? How much play could you have there?
Okay, so
you have to reach.
If the midget's like all the other midgets on the road, you got to buy new A-arms. You just have to. You just have to. And then you're going to have to use a sawzall to get the fulcrum pin out of the bottom. Even if you turn it red hot and put a screwdriver on it, it's not going to come out. And if it does, so what? The A-arm's toast anyway. So it's just I know they're real expensive and everything, but just buy new A-arms and new fulcrum pins. When you get the new A-arms, there's a freeze plug in one side and a threaded in thing that goes in the other. Drill a hole on the end that's got the freeze plug in it, and tap it quarter 28, and then put a grease zerk in it. So you grease the outer end of the A-arm from both sides. So that's that. Then the tie rod ends, you'll just change those.
No, the tie rod itself, where it goes into the bulb, how much play could you allow in there?
It's supposed to be fully articulated, meaning that it'll spin and you lift it and it drops, but you shouldn't have any free play on it.
But I saw a video you had where you set that so you could move it and it would stay wherever you put it. Now that has to be done with shims.
That has to be done with shims, and it's really dicey. And if I've got a video up about that, it's a two-person project, because you gotta have a really good vise, you gotta have a pipe wrench, you gotta have a second person to hold the tie rod out as you unscrew the ball. And then it's a matter of sanding the little piece that goes in there, the socket for the ball, sanding that, or sanding the cover that goes down on it, so that you get just the right amount of free play there. So it's real difficult to do, but you just do it.
And
that's
got special tools, I assume.
Just a pipe wrench. Just a pipe wrench. It's got those 3 slots in it, but that was probably to assemble it. Today, there's no such tool. And the backside's got two pinholes in it, and then the 3 in the front. But it's call me tomorrow.
Hard to grip that little. All right.
You have
hard to grip that back.
That's why you got to have a really good vise. Got to have a really good vise. And I think the threads on that are British Standard Fine. It's not even a common nut size on that, and you don't want to hold it. You can't hold the nuts tightly enough on that anyway. You've got to hold the outside. Call me tomorrow and talk to me tomorrow about this, and I'll see if I can get you straightened out on it. Because if I haven't got a good video up about it, oh boy, here comes a video. And I do have a midget that I'm rebuilding. I've been rebuilding it a long time, not as long as the 36-year MGA, only about a third of that. Way too long. And I've got to do a rack and pinion on that. So if I haven't got a good video up about doing it, I'll do one with that rack and pinion. And dedicated to you.
One more quick question.
Yes, sir.
One more quickie. My car was manufactured in November '71. It's actually then probably 72, because it's a round arch.
Well,
and
it's
only made them for.
It's a GAN. It's a GAN GAN 5UB, right? The serial number on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, the round wheel arches. Everybody loves those round wheel arches.
72 and 3 was the only year, right?
Right.
But it's registered as a 71.
Well,
it kind of messes you up when you try to get parts sometimes.
You got to know what you got when you're ordering the parts. Yep.
Sure. Okay, well, thank you.
Hey, thank you very much. Where are you calling from?
I'm Medford, Oregon.
Okay. All right. Well, it's still what, 3 o'clock in the afternoon there, right? Not okay. Not quite.
Yeah, 5.
Nice.
6, somewhere.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, thanks a lot, Dean.
Oh, thank you.
All right. We're over to John Fabry, who says happy birthday to the other November people. A friend always wishes me a happy next lap around the sun on my birthday, which is also this month. So anyway, thank you very much. Yep. A 12th of the people on here probably have their birthdays in November, unless we found out by some bizarre thing that like 90% of the people have their birthdays in November, some statistic which no one had ever discovered before. And most MG owners are born in November, something weird. I don't expect that's true. Bill Cadden, why not use a piece of square stock instead of an Allen wrench or nail? This way you don't bugger up the gear. That's exactly what was proposed with the nail. So, yep, a square stock or with those new square screwdrivers. So here we go. We got Bill Weekly. Hey, Bill, how are you? Bill is a midget guy. Absolutely. Sounds like the passenger door is original and includes a crash bar that makes it harder to remove and install the window. The driver's door is from an earlier midget that doesn't have the crash bar. So if I'd known this was on here, I would have turned it over to Bill in the first place. Bill, are you still on?
Yes.
From Ann Arbor. Yeah, okay, great. Okay, so anyway, so
I had that problem because I have a 65 that I had to replace a door. I replaced it with a later door without realizing that that crash bar makes the whole window mechanism different, and you have to have a different window winder handle on it. So I've got mismatched winder handles on my car.
Okay, you don't use the same ones at the same time though, so yeah. All right, are you still stripping out some cars, or not stripping out? Are you still recycling car parts?
No, I'm not doing that. I've got two A's, a C, and the midget, and I'd like to have fewer actually.
It's a lot to keep running. So, okay. Thanks. Now from Jim Borkman, I need to remove the gearbox on my 79 MGB. Any advice, anything special? Also, my overdrive is not working on this gearbox. What should I look for? Well, I would try to make the overdrive work before you took the gearbox out. So 95% of all the overdrive problems can be cured without taking the gearbox out of the car. So if you can get that operational, great. If you can't, then you deal with it then. But it's all but impossible to check the overdrive when it's out of the car and not running. So most of the problem with overdrives is wiring, especially on the 79. You got a wire that goes down to the third, fourth lockout switch. From there, it goes up to the gear lever, and from there, it goes down to the solenoid. So there's a bunch of connections. And if you take the interior, the console out and take the carpet back and take the elliptical plate off the oval plate off the tunnel, you can get in there and look at all the wiring. You can hot wire the overdrive with a wire that just comes up through the inside and energize it when you're driving, see if that makes it work. That'll let you know if the third, fourth lockout switch is bad or the switch in the gear column is bad. Anyway, get that sorted out first. And then when you take the engine and gearbox out of the car on a 79, it's pretty easy. You don't have to take the gearbox out unless you want to. But if you are going to take it out, you can take it out in one great big section, or you can take it out, take the engine out first and then take the gearbox out second. You can make a case it's easier to put it back in with the gearbox already attached to the engine because you've done it on the floor. But you probably, at this point, want to change the engine mounts. The left-hand engine mount is a bear to do because the steering column runs through it. The gearbox mounts are shot. You want to change the seals on the front and rear of the gearbox, the front and rear of the engine, side cover gaskets on the engine. There's a lot to do. At this point, you might as well power wash it and then paint the engine. And as long as you're painting the engine, you might as well wait, mission creep. But you might as well power wash. Might as well.
Yeah, I'm already into the engine, getting the new cam. I've done the valves. I'm gonna
Okay,
probably take one of the mains off and see if I've got wear on the bearings.
just do
See
it.
what they look like.
Just do it. How many miles you got on the engine?
100,000.
Oh yeah, just do it. Just change all 4 rods, change the 3 mains. You can't change the front of the number 1 and number 5 because they're locked into the front and rear engine bearing plates, and change the oil pump. So change the 3 mains, the 4 rods, and the oil pump. And
Oh, the
you'll
pump
be,
also, huh?
yep, and you'll be in, and bingo, you're right back up. Right
Buy
back
a
up.
new pump? Is that what you
Yeah,
are suggesting?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I basically was gonna take the gearbox out because it would be, the engine is out. And I don't know if there's any special hidden bolts in there to remove for the gearbox to come out. I know on some of the earlier Bs, it's tough to get the gearbox in and out because of the way it's mounted, I think.
This is pretty easy. If you take the cross member off the car, then
Okay.
and if you've already got the engine out, take the exhaust off. That's only a couple of bolts. Now that's not going to interfere with you getting the gearbox out. So, the drive shaft comes off and some of the wiring comes off, and the speedo
Yeah.
cable, and you can put a
Okay.
jack underneath it and balance it as you bring it down. So,
Yeah, yeah. If I take I thought about taking the gearbox out and then checking all the wiring on the overdrive because it's just easier to get at it.
yes.
And then clean that. There's that compartment underneath where you can clean out the overdrive. There's a ball in there or something, and
Well, there's a filter screen. There's a filter screen. So what we used to do is you make all you need is two 2-foot-long pieces of 2x4, and you can put the gearbox standing on its nose, standing on the bell housing, and stick it up. There's a filter underneath there that comes off with some 5/16 bolts. I mean, the heads are 5/16, and you want to get a new filter screen and get as many O-rings as you can, and just change as much stuff as you can as long as it's out, power wash it. And if you find garbage in the filter screen, then call me and talk to me about what you found. There's a thrust washer that often breaks up inside there. I've got thicker thrust washers to change that. You got to take the whole overdrive apart. It's no small task. But anyway, and you want to absolutely, positively get a new 3rd, 4th lockout switch and put it in there and try it 50 times and make sure that it works every single time, because it's the least accessible electrical component in the vehicle, except for a guy, St. John, who told me, from Ann Arbor, Michigan, who told me he can reach it because he's got little hands, but I've got great big hands. I can't begin to get up in there. So
that's in that compartment, that lockout switch.
no, it's right on top of the gearbox. The 3rd, 4th lockout switch. It's on the remote control housing.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay. Well, more fun coming.
Hey, this is what we do, right?
Yep.
Okay, where are you calling from, Jim?
Near Buffalo, Clarence, New York.
Oh, okay. All right.
I live near George.
Hey, okay. All right. Steve Olson. Here we go. There's another Midget 1500. I've got a Midget 1500 and I've just purchased a crankshaft damper from British Parts Northwest. I've never bothered to have one. Will this really help the crank survive vibration? Well, it's supposed to, but I've never seen a broken crank on a Midget 1500 anyway. So the biggest problem you've got is getting that front nut off. Steve, are you still on? We're at 128 people, and Steve may have already checked out, but
No, I'm still here.
oh, okay, there you go. All right. So anyway,
I have seen a broken crank.
Okay.
I have seen a broken crank on a midget. I just thought for $100 I'd see if it would help.
Yeah, well, you won't know if it doesn't. Maybe you won't know if it does. But anyway, getting that front nut off, that's that if you get a socket, that's a real big, it's like 1 7/8 or something. It's just monstrous.
Bigger than
Inch and 7/8 is too big. It's 13 inch and 13/16.
Okay, all
I
right.
had to buy that socket.
That's just a real bugger. Yep, yep.
And then
Okay.
you need a real good impact range to drive it with too.
Yep, yep, absolutely. So I can't remember, Steve, where are you from?
Kansas City.
Yep, all right. Yep, I saw Dean Wheeler on earlier too, so, okay. All right. Janet and Reg, for those that install an MGA gearbox without the trans tunnel, make sure to install the bolt to the tranny in the correct way. That's for sure. So this is a comment about when you install the engine and gearbox in your chassis. And,
Exactly.
Yeah, and oh my gosh, because if you get it in the wrong way, yeah, you got to take the whole interior out, or it's just easier to hit it with a Sawzall and cut it off so you can withdraw it and then get a new bolt. That's a pretty good size. Is that a 3/4 inch? No, it couldn't be a 3/4 inch bolt. It's 5/8 all through 5.
John, my solution was simply to use an inch metal bit, drill a hole in the side of the tunnel, slides right out. 1-inch plug goes back in, and the carpet goes over it.
Yeah, who would ever know? Who would ever know? Yeah, yeah. And
But
so
somebody else learned from that.
a lot cheaper than taking out the floorboards and then taking out the tunnel. Yeah. Yeah. And
thank you.
All right, where are you calling from, Reg?
Vancouver, Canada.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay. Anyway, thanks. I could never do stuff like that. I could never drill extra holes, and it's just so. I mean, you're looking at spending $1,000 or 15. Yeah. See, Pat G's weighed in again. Same here in San Diego. All SMG wrenches are old and retiring. Hard to find a British car mechanic. I believe that's true. Well, that's why I'm on here, hoping to spread the word and just say, hey, it's fun. If you want to make money, a lot of money, there's probably other professions you might want to choose to enter, but it's not all about making money. It's doing what you love. And if you love fixing stuff, everything you can fix, you go back to a T-type, you can fix everything. I don't know if you can rewind the armature. I mean, you could, I suppose you can. I've never tried that. But oh my gosh, because it's hard to find guys who rewire armatures. Although Tony Shoviak was on last session and told us about a place out in California that was still doing that. All right, David Massey, bring your MGA to South Florida to fit the top. We had 4 days of record-breaking heat, 89 degrees. So if you're fitting a top, a plastic top, cloth top doesn't make so much difference, but any kind of plastic top, which is not a cloth top, they're all plastic, no matter what they call it. Yeah, heat is your friend, so.
Yep. When all you guys put your cars away the 1st of October, I'm getting mine out because that's when it's just cool enough to start driving it. Sorry about that,
cool.
guys.
Yeah,
that's
an all-year-round occupation.
That's a real nice looking car there. With that white top, David. That's real sweet. Is that Glacier Blue? That's not Irish Blue, is it? That's Glacier Blue.
Glacier? Yes,
Glacier?
Glacier Blue.
Yeah, it's real pretty. I talked to my daughter the day before yesterday. I did that teal blue MGB for her, and she was talking about her car. She said, oh, it's Tahiti blue. I said, it's not Tahiti blue, that's 75, 76. And then they followed that with pageant blue on the MGBs, but I couldn't remember the name teal blue. And she said, I just got to have a better name, a more British name than teal blue. And I suggested Brighton blue and some other stuff. And she funny said, I'm going to rename it London Blue Topaz. It's like, okay, Glacier Blue, that's a real pretty color. Oh my gosh, especially with the ocean in the background or the canal or whatever's lying behind it.
The tree's a palm tree, but you don't have that perspective. So anyway.
Yeah, it looks real pretty. Oh my gosh. All right. Jordan K.
You'll be at Memphis.
I will be at Memphis. Yes. Yep. Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
The end of it's Father's Day weekend. Yeah.
So, you know, it's nice to get a Father's Day card or something or other, but I'd rather be at an MG meet. Barney will be there. You're going to be there, Barney. Barney's always everywhere. So Barney will be there. So, yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out when it's good time to put in our reservations.
Well, Hiram Shepard and his wife, Hiram and Carolyn are the lead, I think, leads on this. So it'll be a real nice, that's the home of Elvis. I mean, it's got, you know, there's always all that other stuff that's going on. I'm always happy just to stay in the parking lot, work on cars, but other people want to go to Gracie Mansion and stuff like that. So it'll be real nice. So Jordan K to everybody. Sorry I missed it, had to step away, but can you touch on the differences between an early, mid, and late MGB transmission switches? So we're probably talking about 68 through 80, maybe, if Jordan's still on. And 68 through 76, there's a switch on the column, on the wiper switch, that if you don't have overdrive, you can hook your fuel pump up to. Safety device. It's no longer secret because I've just told everybody you can do it. But
John.
Yes.
I'm referring to the switches that are on the gearbox themselves.
Okay.
One is obviously the reverse switch, and I'm not exactly sure what the other one does, but I got a gearbox that came out of an 80 and I was putting it in my 72, and my wiring harness doesn't quite reach the way that it did on my old gearbox. And I'm wondering, do I need to extend the wires over to hit the new switch, or what is the purpose of the two switches?
All right. So do you have overdrive in this new gearbox?
I do not.
Okay. So there's only one switch which you have to hook up, and that's the reverse light switch, which is located up at, if you're looking at the back of the transmission forward, it's up around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock,
right,
on the gear case itself. There's another switch up on the remote control housing that goes continuous in 4th gear. Don't need it. It's for the overdrive and for the transmission controlled spark switch. So that's not necessary. And those are probably the only 2 switches on that gearbox, aren't they? Yeah.
They are. The second switch you were talking about was at a slightly different location on my old transmission, and the wiring harness worked fine for that. I just couldn't reach it and didn't know if I had to worry about it on the new transmission.
No, you ought to be able to stretch that wiring out a little bit, or if you had to, you just extend it. The 2 wires that are the operational wires here are green and green with brown, your reverse light wires.
Those are the only 2 I need.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. Where are you calling from?
Well, I'm calling from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, but I'm in the airport headed back to sunny St.
I was just going to say,
Florida.
it looks like you're in an airport. Yeah. Yeah. But this is late at night. There's nobody else waiting with you, or you've stepped to gate 34 where there's no.
There's a few people here.
Okay. All right.
Not many people on the red eye back to Orlando.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh, at least you're going into some heat, so that's nice.
Indeed.
Hey,
thanks, John.
Hey, thank you.
John,
Yes.
can I add something
George,
there?
George,
On, that
yes.
on the 80 transmission, he's gonna have speedo problems because the speedo is different from the model he has.
Thank you, George. Thank you. That is absolutely correct. So the gearbox is switched between chrome and rubber bumper, between top fill and side fill. That happens simultaneously, and they go from 1,280 turns per mile to 1,000 turns per mile. So you're going to have to get a different speedo. That's just the easiest way out of this. and you can find them on eBay or all around, and it just has to be 74.5 through 76. And down in the bottom right-hand corner, down around 5 o'clock, it either says 1,000 or 1280. So that's all. Thank you, George. All right, let's see. Greg, who's got a 70 midget, that's where I was going, but it's about a 68B. I purchased an overdrive transmission for my 68B that I'm rebuilding. Any tips on what to look for before I install it? So, Greg, are you still on?
Yeah, John, I'm still here.
Okay, so what year did that gearbox come out of?
I believe it was a 78.
So it's a side fill.
Yes, Black Label.
Okay. So you've got the opposite problem, and that is that your Speedo is going to run slow. So I got some, I don't know if that's you, Greg, or not, but I'm going to hit mute all, and then you're going to have to unmute yourself. Come back on. Anyway, that's the only issue there. The drive shaft is the same length. You're going to have to hook up the third, fourth lockout switch. But right now on your 68B, you've got a yellow wire, yellow with red, that's just waiting for an overdrive to be hooked up to it. Don't hook it up directly because it's unfused. Put an inline fuse, 10 amp inline fuse, and go from there down to the third, fourth lockout switch, which is that switch on the remote control. But don't use the switch that's in there. Buy a new switch and test it 50 times first, just to make sure. And then you can change the front and rear seal if you think you should. And then there's a filter screen on the bottom of the gearbox. Take that off. And if there's junk in it, like a broken up copper washer, then call me and I'll tell you what to do. It's a couple of steps. But just change the filter screen. That's it. And if you want, you can change the other O-rings, but you can change those once it goes in the car also. So are you still on?
I was told it was rebuilt, but that's what somebody said.
Well, what does that mean? You know, yeah. It wasn't rebuilt correctly. So again, 95%, maybe even more of the problems with an overdrive gearbox can be solved from underneath the car. So you're pretty safe in putting it in, you know, rather than taking it all back apart again to look. And what are you going to look at? You know, that they're, you know, anyway. But yeah, if it's rebuilt, I just go ahead and put the thing in.
Okay.
Okie doke. Where are you calling from?
Just south of Reading, Pennsylvania.
Okay, all right. Okay, there's a Kimberfest going on in Philadelphia in April. So it doesn't get heavily advertised outside the New England MGT register, but it's a real interesting event. Okay.
Our club has been talking about that.
Hey, Gord Watley out of Ontario organizes that. And it'd be really nice to have a whole lot of people come. That Simeon Museum is an interesting museum. I understand that Dr. Simeon died. That's too bad. But anyway, there's a nice museum there. And before his heirs take it apart, unless he's donated it to itself or something. We've had the Kimberfest there before. It's a real nice place. So. Okay, Dean Webb, we're back to Dean. Dean asked before about his rack and pinion in the midget, and use oil, 90 weight gear oil. So 90 weight gear oil goes in all the rack and pinions. It goes in all the carburetors. It goes in T-type and midget 1500 gearboxes. It goes in the differential. And then engine oil goes in the engine, 20W50 goes in the engine, and in the all the other gearboxes, the Sprigget gearboxes, although if those are noisy, 90 weight quiets them up, works better than a banana. And That was the old story about used car dealers putting a banana in the differential. So to make it quiet. Use engine oil in the MGB, the 63 through, 54 through 1980. Although John Esposito at Quantum Mechanics, who does a lot of gearbox rebuilding, is adamant that you should use 30-weight non-detergent oil. So, and anyway, you just got to make up your mind. The workshop manual says engine oil, but you don't have to use high zinc oil. But you didn't ask about any of that. You only asked about the oil in the rack and pinion. Well, we're down to it. I think we're down to the end of the Q&As. We're at 9:10, and is Doug Clark? Are you on tonight?
Yes, John, I am on. I know what you're going to ask me, so I'll just give you the answer. It'll be like Jeopardy. I'll give you the answer. 160 is what I counted, so
right,
that's what I counted.
Hey, 160 people, 160 budding engineers. So that's wonderful.
Right.
Thank you very much. Thanks for counting. I thought of you the other day when I was on Facebook and somebody had a Beatles ticket from 1965 from Cleveland, Ohio. It was $5.50. And they said that in market contrast, the new Taylor Swift tickets were $550. So 100 times as much. So, yeah.
Yeah, I thought you might have said, I was reminded of you. You saw someone wearing a pith helmet, which reminds me, I've got to bring them out for a future meeting to, to display again. But anyway, good to see you, John.
If you bring your pith helmet to the next meeting, I'll bring one of my pith helmets to the next meeting. So okay, all right, thanks. Well, I'm going to open it up here to everybody. We chat, talk for a minute. If anybody's got any last minute things, you can talk louder than somebody else, and I can try to answer. So, but it's rodents. I just had a guy ask me about storing his MG today, a phone call, tech call, and I said it's you can argue all day about whether the tires are going to get flat spots, the brakes are going to lock up or something, but you can fix all that. What you can't fix is what the damage that the mice do. So either put a perimeter down there. Concertina wire doesn't work, but Victor mousetraps do, or put something inside the car that the mice don't want to smell. What did we have last year with people talking about not raspberry juice, but so something.
Pepper oil.
What kind?
Peppermint oil.
Peppermint oil.
And also they hate dryer sheets.
Yeah, dryer sheets. That's right, dryer sheets.
In dryer sheets.
We have not had a problem.
We used to put naphthalene mothballs in nylons, but where do you buy nylons? Although all guys can buy nylons now, that wasn't the case 20 years ago. You got the funny look, but now it's like, anyway, if you got to support them some way. You can't put them in loose because they roll around, and it takes those naphthalene ones a long time to sublime. In the meantime, it's like driving around in your grandma's cedar chest. But don't buy paradichlorobenzene balls. Because that, when you go, where have I smelled that before? Where? It's the same smell as a cake that you get in a urinal, So anyway, yeah, mice. Apparently anything with a real heavy offensive odor screws up their smellers, their noses, and so they avoid it.
John, it doesn't have to be offensive. We have multiple cars that we store, and we use dryer sheets, and we've never had a problem with mice. So that way that your car doesn't smell bad, and your mice stay away.
Okay, all right.
We keep the lid under the car, and so far Because we had a real problem. I mean, they ruined my wife's car's heater, got in the heater core and everything. But since we've been keeping a light bulb under the car, they don't seem to like to operate in light. They like to operate in the dark.
That works
Now,
until a drop of gasoline hits it.
I
Yeah,
don't
John,
do it under the AMG, just under a modern.
before you put dryer sheets in, vacuum the car out, vacuum the inside of the car out.
Well, that's a good idea anyway.
Clean the inside of the car, right? And get any, not just food, but twigs or any sort of nesting material. Do a vacuuming job inside the car before you put the drying sheets inside.
Okay. I remember cars coming in the shop, for restoration, and there's a chamber about that wide between the firewall that you see when you're inside the car behind the dash and where the hinges move into. And I remember seeing those little mice with the little beady eyes, and I'm there with a power washer power washing it, and they're jumping back and forth trying to get out. The first place that they seem to live is next to the master cylinder boxes. But I found them. We found them inside engines. I mean, we found them. They're just everywhere. So, yeah, dryer sheets, and the takeaway from tonight for T-type gearboxes is the adjustable pressure on the detent balls. Oh my gosh, that is just so friggin' cool. I've never heard of that before. I'm coming away with a really great one. I have heard of dryer sheets, not so emphatically as tonight, but in the smell is gone, or it doesn't affect us much. It is gone as soon as you take the dryer sheets out. So
we worked on a 52 TD, sat outside for 30 some years, took the spark plugs out, and there were seeds on top of one of the pistons.
Yeah.
How they got in there, I don't know.
Yeah.
But the car didn't rust because there was no salt. It was covered, sat outside, and everything came off without busting.
Go
That's
figure.
amazing. And I remember I called you and asked if I should take the job. And you said, does the engine turn over? Well, we had it in gear and pulled it, engine turnover. And you said something pretty profound. It's an MG, it'll start. And it did. And the whole problem was 30 some years ago when they put a new clutch in, they put the ground strap on in the wrong place. It had no ground. So we took care of that and the car kicked right off after we did a bunch of other stuff.
Oh my gosh. So maybe next time I'll ask Fred Horner to come on and talk about SU carburetors. You want to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Fred?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay. All right. Fred's got a lot of information about SUs. It's really fascinating. Fred was a presenter at the Kimberfest, and we all learned more about SUs than we'd ever known in our lives. More than anyone knew. I don't think anyone knew as much as Fred has discovered through years of painstakingly writing down serial numbers, well, not serial numbers, but ID numbers off of SUs that you don't even see. Nobody's ever seen them because you don't know what they mean, so you just ignore them. So yeah, all right. Next time is Fred. So
John.
Okay. Oh, hey, Phil Ryan, how are you? I see you on tonight. So yep.
Yeah,
There we go.
John. Hey, you gonna be in your shop tomorrow?
No, I'm going to be here at the house. Stop by the house.
Maybe I will.
We're cutting a hole in my roof. Why would you cut a hole in your roof?
That would be worth seeing.
To put a skylight in. Yeah, my girlfriend is adamant. She goes, "Oh, you got to have a skylight in your bathroom." I said, "All skylights leak." And she goes, "No, they don't." I said, "Well, in every industrial building, commercial building I've ever been in, they leak, but anyway, yes, that's what we're going to be doing tomorrow. I haven't seen you for a while. So.
Yeah, it's been a while. Hey, you talking about ticking on valve lash? My father used to say, when you can hear them, it's okay. When you can't hear them, you got to worry.
Okay. Absolutely. Yep.
So
Yeah,
anytime we ever
when I-
set them, you can just hear them.
Okay, yep.
When I set the lifters and tune up my MG, it sounds a little bit like a sewing machine. It's not just one tick. I mean, you can hear them, the lifters, which is fine.
You know, if it's just when one of them, it was just, you know, when one of them is, and apparently if this one was that loud, you know, and it's like when you're sitting at a stoplight, you know, in 2-lane or 4-lane traffic, and the guy next to you says, "Hey, cool car, what's the matter with it?" It's like, oh, geez, you know, I thought I was the only one that heard that. Oh. Well, ladies, gentlemen, Monsieur, Madame, thank you very kindly for coming in tonight. Hit the PayPal button on your way out if you'd be so kind. I appreciate that always. And we'll look for it. Our next one is going to be, let's see, let me look on my calendar here. Must be about the 12th. We will not have one on the 26th. That's for sure. The day after Christmas, that's pushing it. So we'll probably bump the next one up to maybe the 2nd of January, but we will have one on the 12th, and we're going to invite Fred Horner to talk about SU carburetors. So, and I'm gonna hit the share screen just on the way out here and see if there's some way that I can, just a second here. Share, just a minute. Let me just see if I can get, no, this thing didn't work. I want to get a picture of my daughter or my granddaughter up here. It's such a cool picture, but unless I can get this, let me just try here.
Just to let you know that you're showing us all your stuff. All your...
Yeah. Not UML. That sounds like Rodolfo.
Yeah. Sorry. Hello,
Oh,
everybody. Good evening.
Yeah. Great.
Good to see you.
It's always nice. So let me come down here and see if I can get this thing to ramp up. Oh, come on. Sometimes it takes a minute to organize. There we go. There's my granddaughter, you know, standing next to the Van de Graaff electrostatic generator.
You
So-
still got the screen of the MG Synchros.
What's that?
You still have the Synchro screen up, at least on
Oh, I
mine.
do? Oh, all right. Oh, okay.
What's your
All right.
view?
Well. Yeah, okay. Well, that's.
Maybe you should have your granddaughter help you with your computer.
That's what everybody else, that's what everybody else does.
If you try to share again, you can choose if your picture is already on, you can choose it directly.
So let me just a second. Let me try it. All right, we'll share it. We'll try it once more. There we go. There, how about that one?
Oh, wow.
Shocking.
Yeah. So lots of fun.
Beautiful.
All right. So
I saw a resemblance there.
I don't know how. She's 6 years old and a female and long blonde hair. It's a
She
thin-
wears glasses.
Anyway, it's very kind. All right. Well, Rodolfo, nice to have you on tonight. Thanks. So
Thanks to you.
Yep. Our member, our North American MGB register member from Mexico. So great. Okie doke. Well, again, ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much. And good night. Good night.
Good night, John.
Good night.
Have a
Mark.
great
John.
Good luck.
See you tomorrow.
Thanks.
Sean, Sean English.
As always, John, we enjoyed it very much.
Hey,
Thanks a
thank
lot.
you.
See you next time.
Okie doke.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
all.
Bye.